Hi, Dr. Page here. So I wanted to pop on today and talk a little bit about the five most common issues that I see with athletes when they're stuck in a trauma response. And so the first one would be overthinking. And what I mean by overthinking is when you're out there and you're having to think about what actions you need to do. For example, if you're a baseball player and you're out there up to bat, and you're literally going through the things that your coach is telling you that you need to do, and it's not subconsciously programmed in, and you're not in flow state, just able to do it. So that's overthinking it. Or if you're a skill athlete or a snowboard, half pipe, something of that nature, it's literally trying to think about what you need to do in the moment, which is really physiologically impossible to think about something before you do it, because as athletes, you have this thing called, extrasensory processing, where you have practiced and practiced skills. Therefore, you should be able to do them subconsciously in that flow state. So overthinking is one of the primary ones, and I can kind of see it as like the worst one in a sense of that you're not actually in flow in the game, dialed in, paying attention. Instead, you're going through your mind, telling yourself what you have to do. So overthinking would be the first one. Second one, the performance anxiety, whether it's cognitive or body arousal. So the cognitive, just worrying, going out there and worrying, and then adding on that overthinking. But it's even just worrying the night before, not being able to sleep. Mind's racing, heart's racing. You just can't relax. You're waking up every couple hours, wake up too early, even before you need to be up. That cognitive anxiety. And even just it overwhelming you when you're out there trying to play. Then we got the body arousal type of performance anxiety, and we separate the two in sports psychology. And so the body arousal is literally your hand shaking, leg shaking, feeling like tremors throughout your body, feeling frozen in some respects. So that's going to be another aspect of performance anxiety, which is very inhibiting, especially if you're trying to run hard and fast, swim hard and fast, ski hard and fast. And then absolutely, if you need to do a very practiced skill, like in gymnastics or any other aerial sport. And then certainly if you're the quarterback for the football team, you better not be shaking, because you better have that accuracy within that flow state and that subconscious programming. Next one would be exactly that, slowing down, not having the reaction time, hesitating. So you'll see when you're out there watching football and an athlete kind of hesitates for a moment instead of throwing the ball and finishing the play that's been called. Or you see it when a professional basketball player is getting ready to make a free throw and then kind of hesitate for a second and get like a kind of nervous system wobble or weird movement. So that's also going to be another trauma response indicator. And then we've got the yips, right? So the absolute, you cannot get your body to do the motion that it's been practiced to do for, even 15 years. So the yips is going to be another one that is another trauma response. Also, when it comes to even just being able to make a good catch, you see the football players out there, they got butterfingers, right? It goes right through their hands. Well, that's the same kind of thing. That reaction time is not on point. So that reaction time is very important. And then the fifth one that I think is the most interesting that a lot of people don't think about is being really quick tempered, getting super ragey and angry about seemingly nothing. So that's going to be another one. And also that can, spread into your personal life too, when it starts to be like getting into fights with your colleagues or your teammates, or getting into fights with just friends or people on the street, or just really getting enraged for really no reason, or having a reaction that's way stronger than what happened. And then also that can transpire into domestic violence. So just really getting heated in arguments and then resorting to like throwing a phone through the wall, or breaking something, or even actually hitting your loved one. So those are the five most common trauma responses that I'm seeing with athletes and have been seeing for the last 15 years of working within this industry. And the one thing about it is, as athletes, we train to go into trauma responses to an extent. So when we're training and our lactate threshold is high, meaning you're feeling the burn, right? When you're in the gym, when you're running, when you're sports specific training. So we actually kind of learn to disassociate from that pain, because pain kind of pushes us into that shock trauma response, that fight, flight, freeze feeling. So we actually learn how to go into trauma responses. Also, when it comes to a trauma response of like fawning, we really learn at a young age that we're trying to make our coaches or parents or individuals, teammates, public, everyone in our environment happy. And so if we don't do that, then it can kind of change how we feel about our own performance. So there's that fawn response. And then when it comes to fight, it's one of those things where, yeah, when you get knocked down enough times and you're pushing it harder and harder, you start to go into that fight trauma response. But the thing about it is, and really where you start to see the trauma responses inhibiting you and making you less resilient, is about high school. So by the time you get into high school, particularly where you're really dialed in and doing sport specific training and have chosen a sport about your junior year, and that's what you're going to pursue and try to pursue in college or on into the professional leagues, it's that that's when it really starts to show up. So you already have the skills. You already know that you're going to need, particularly with some of the sports, extreme sports and some of the things that are very skill orientated, you'll have to learn harder skills beyond there in college, whether it be diving or gymnastics or any of the performative sports. But when it comes to the ball sports, when it comes to just your hockey, any of these team sports, you really have the skills. Now it's just about dialing in that flow state and staying in that subconscious programming. So at that point, it's really not about beating yourself up, getting critique, trying to make other people happy, and pushing beyond your limits to the extent that you're getting hurt or getting delayed onset muscle soreness or overtraining syndrome. It's really at that point is where we start to see that you instead need to do the altered consciousness state or subconscious programming and printing work to reprocess all the past stressors and reprocess all the hard times that you've endured, so that your nervous system comes back to a default of calm, cool, collected, confident, composed, and in that alpha brainwave. So getting you out of that fight, flight, freezy, sympathetic nervous system dominance or high beta brainwave, where we have the anxiety and the yips and overthinking and that rage response. So in my experience in working with athletes and seeing athletes achieve some of the greatest things in the world, where it be like a national champion, world champion, or Olympic podium, is that if you can prevent a decline to when the nervous system gets too hot, too stuck in a trauma response, and you start to get that decline, and you typically see that about, like I said, the end of high school going into college, or you start to see a plateau, right? And so if an athlete can start doing the mental work, start training their nervous system, reprocess and desensitize these things, and train the brain to stay in that alpha flow state about junior, senior year, you're not going to endure that decline, and you're certainly going to be more likely to get that college contract or that national team contract. So it's the hardest thing for me to kind of sit back and watch. You hear it all the time. You see these athletes that even get into these leagues right out of, first couple of years in college, and then they aren't good, or, we can call it a lot of derogatory things. But yeah, so it's really hard to watch individuals do that, because I know that if they had the potential already, because we know genetic wise with athletes, by the time someone's 10, we know genetic potential, and we can actually send athletes to go at performance labs across the United States. A lot of universities have them. Where I did my undergrad in exercise science, they have a great performance lab in Grand Junction, Colorado, but you can do your VO2 max. So you can actually see at a very young age if you have the potential, if you have the genetic potential to make it to that next level. And so if you have that genetic potential, that's a huge indicator to me that if they're identifying you at a young age that, hey, you're going to go to the next level, you're going to go all the way, and your performance starts to decline, especially when the pressure is on to compete and we're calling for cortisol, adrenaline, which is enhancing that trauma response. We know that you need to be doing this subconscious programming work of the desensitization, reprocessing the past that's gotten you where you are to fully become resilient. And so my biggest advice with this and talking about these 5 common issues that I see with an athlete stuck in a trauma response is that you want to preemptively be training your brain. And what I've developed with the Alpha Imprinting and even the greater aspect of the performance neurotraining business that I have has always been that we really need to train your nervous system. And once you train your nervous system, the mind and body just sync, and you got this. It's not about talking yourself out of having stress or the anxiety. It's not about giving yourself a mantra to go out there, because that's all conscious. We can't consciously override our subconscious programming. Subconscious programming comes from the traumas that we've endured because it's primitive, it's survival response. So we have to go back in and subconsciously decondition the past so that we can condition in that alpha flow state all the time. And it's not just from athlete results. I've been doing QEEG brain scans for the last 11 years and have actually literally seen athletes' reaction time improve by up to 50% regionally throughout the brain. And it's a auditory and a physical response. You hear a ding, and it's how quick you click the mouse and how quickly these areas of the brain are reacting. It's called the P300, so 300 milliseconds. So if you're doing less than 300 milliseconds, that's good. How quick you're responding, that's reaction time. But if it's over that, not good. We know that you have some trauma inhibiting you. And then also we know that we can maintain being more in that alpha brainwave, not high up in that beta and coming down to those depressions. Because that's the thing, where there's a high anxiety, there's always going to be a low. So we want to stay in the middle. We're just in flow. So if you're experiencing any of these 5 issues, go ahead and comment alpha, and we can get you booked for a 30-minute consultation with me, and we can see how we can help you get back to your peak.